And now I want to introduce Sayam Pathak. Sayam is already here. So Sayam Pathak has completed 1 year as CNCF ambassador and managed the foundation promotion in India and globally, and provided presentations to accelerate the growth of developer community to support the projects and industry. He's now helping EOTF in India to support and evangelize through his current company, Saibo, as director. He's a long-time open source leader with 6+ year experience, wide knowledge in AI, ML, and cloud industry, working closely with business and technology groups at Walmart, Labs, Flipkart, HP, Oracle, and several companies at Bengaluru. That is what Silicon Valley of India. He is now as a great organizer and recently moved to Chandigarh under pandemic and works as remote to promote CNCF and cyber product lines. So speaker at several CNCF conference, a real practical educator to educators, and is uh, and it's for the Kubernetes part. Your contribution is really good, and thanks, Sayam, for joining us today. And floor is yours.
Yeah, hello everyone, and thank you, Vipin, for the introduction, and thank you, Prakash, for inviting me to speak with the wonderful audience. So by now, obviously, you should have some idea of what CNCF is, the ecosystem that was formed around Kubernetes, because that was the first one, the Kubernetes project. So that was the base on which the whole ecosystem was started, and now you can see where it is headed to. It's $1 trillion business that is happening. People are getting the n number of jobs because of the CNCF ecosystem and the technologies out there. There are n number of startups even in India that are getting formed. There are startups like InfraCloud is there. They have their own open source products. So a lot of startups are there with their open source products, which solves or caters a specific problem in the ecosystem. So today we'll be discussing about Kubernetes, and we'll try to understand what it is and different Kubernetes distributions, so that you have some idea of basically now you know the CNCF landscape. You'll be knowing the Kubernetes ecosystem, and then you can learn and explore other tooling from the CNCF landscape. I'll touch a bit on that as a, like, how you can learn, because that is also very important part. You can get lost in the CNCF landscape. It is huge. So you need to navigate well. You need to fit your problems well. You don't need to learn everything, and you need to make sure you learn the right thing, and do small POCs, and then decide the right set of tools, cloud native tools that will solve your problem, and then you try to form a solution around it. Pick a cloud vendor or do it on premise. That various options are there. So I'll share the screen. Yeah, so already the introduction is done. I'll quickly run through some of the points that were not touched. Oops, not the sharing one, present. Yeah, so I work as director of technical evangelism at Civo, where I basically explore all the technologies. I solve the specific problems that we face using the cloud native tools and technologies. I work closely with the innovators, closely with the people who are forming it, and we shape up the products, different open source products as well, not only with respect to Civo. So at Civo, I'm designing the cloud platform. So we have the first ever managed K3S service that we provide, apart from the compute storage networking that all cloud providers do. So we are doing everything cloud native way, simplifying Kubernetes for developers and mid to small size industries. And obviously I contribute to the community a lot by I write blogs, I write local meetups. I do a lot of live streaming on my YouTube channel, which I'll show you as well. So it's basically sayampathak.com/YouTube that you can check out. And on Twitter is the place that I keep on regularly post sometimes tips, tricks, some of the things that I'm learning, my schedules and all those. So it's very open. And also I wrote a book on Kubernetes CKS certification. Like Priyanka said, I have done a lot with the certifications, and I'm still doing a CNCF show, which is on cloudnative.tv. So every bi-weekly, every Thursday, I do this particular show to teach about certifications, so that people get to know. I also wrote a book on CKS certification, which is on security specialty. So this is This was launched previously at KubeCon North America. Very good certification, pretty hard, and all practical. So hope this book will help. So that's pretty much it. So today's topic is Kubernetes distributions. I'll touch upon K8s, K3s, K0s, a bit on micro K8s. So first, what we'll do is, let me show you some of the gist that I'll be talking on. So first of all, this is the YouTube channel. So Sayam Pathak, you can either search on YouTube or see, and you can see the upcoming live streams, Rust, KCP. So all these technologies are pretty new, and you can also see the past technologies, Harvester, which is managing VMs on top of Kubernetes, then Opni, which is AI ops, then Rancher Desktop and Kim, a new way of building the images, Epinio, a complete PaaS service on top of Kubernetes, KubeWarden for policies, and there are tons of them. Also, there is a very special playlist that I created and I'll keep on adding, which is called CNCF Minutes. So Priyanka showed you the CNCF landscape. Now in that landscape, you can get lost. So you can check out CNCF Minutes. The aim is to explain about a CNCF project in few minutes. So that's the whole goal. And this was very well appreciated by CNCF as well, multiple times retweeted as well. So that you can see the credibility over there. I will add more to that, just due to some time constraints and personal issues. I was not able to continue it, immediate regularly, but I'll be back on it very soon. But the streams are continuing as it is. So we have, this is the book that I was talking about. You can see that. So, and this is the documentation for Kubernetes. So we'll go to kubernetes.io. So Kubernetes is an orchestration engine, production grade orchestration engine. So you will be having, basically you have containers. So you can containerize your traditional apps. Basically say that you have a monolithic app. So you will be splitting your monolithic app into microservices. Now, every time it's not useful to split. So you have to consider the time and the effort for that as well. But for the new apps, definitely we should tend to go for the microservice architecture whenever we can. And all those apps which are heavily dependent, different dependencies, you are tied to a single programming language, all those things can be catered by converting to a microservices architecture. Now that you have microservice architecture, what to do next? You will be containerizing that, because that's the new cloud native way of deploying things on cloud or on premise or bare metal infrastructure, as you prefer. Like the government institution can have reserved instances on cloud, reserved bare metal instances that you only have the control, or you can have your own data center, because there are quite a few data centers in India as well. So you can have your own DCs, have your own rack and kit, and configure that, because Kubernetes on bare metal works really well. Or you can just use any of the cloud vendors managed Kubernetes if you want to avoid the learning curve for Kubernetes and you just want to get started. So you can choose first from the managed Kubernetes, and then you can start with your own Kubernetes cluster. So the thing is, production grade Kubernetes to set up is not quite that easy. So there's a learning curve, to be very honest. There's a big learning curve. And all the education institutes or all the government institutes who want to put an effort on learning, well and good, go ahead and learn that, and then you set up a highly available disaster recovery Kubernetes setup on any of the infrastructure. If you do not want that, and if you just want to test out or pilot phase things, then what you do is you choose one of the managed offerings. Now managed offerings are very good. So each of the cloud vendors would provide some of the managed offerings with some pricing. Obviously, everything comes at a cost. So those managed offerings are basically the Kubernetes cluster, which is already set up. You'll just get a kubeconfig file, which I'll tell you. You'll interact with that, and you can deploy your application and all that stuff. Now, if you are comfortable with that, and then you want to move towards your own production grade cluster, then probably you can start over there. So this is what a Kubernetes in a nutshell is. I didn't want to cover that, but just to set the context right. So this is how the Kubernetes is. Now that we know about Kubernetes, what people have done, what the industries or the companies have done over time, is they have created distributions. So Kubernetes distributions, not the 5 one. We can go to the landscape, or it's actually not required. So basically people have created the Kubernetes distributions. Now the idea for creating Kubernetes distribution is to make it simple for the end users. So like you folks or academia folks or government folks, they want to test out things, but it becomes then difficult to even try because there is a learning gap. So here the Kubernetes distributions try to eliminate that gap, eliminate the setup, how to set it up and how to use it. So all these things gets eliminated. You get you get a cluster very fast. Everything gets compiled. So each distribution has its own benefits. People are trying to minimize the effort for setting up the overall goal. Minimize the effort for setting up the Kubernetes cluster, increase the productivity, increase the production grade thing, then increase the value that the end user get, increase the security, increase the performance, have it as a minimal size, as minimal as possible. Then working for the edge and the IoT use case, because that is a massive industry right now. So edge and IoT is actually the massive industry where the Kubernetes monster. Because if you talk about a K8s cluster, it requires minimum 4 gigs of RAM. It's huge when you see the code base as well. So you won't be able to run it on IoT or edge devices. But when you talk about smaller Kubernetes distributions, which gives you the same power, so you will get the same Kubernetes power. You'll be able to run the exact same workloads that you'll be running on K8s on the different Kubernetes distributions that we'll be talking today. You'll be able to run that without any issues. So it comes pre-bundled with a lot of things. So I'll just show you how things are, because this is basically a demo rich thing so that you get the whole idea how to do things. And also let me just connect my application so that we can do some scribble as well. Just give me a second. And we will be ready. So we have okay. So we will be talking Kubernetes and its distribution. So let me just reduce the font size a bit. Yep, this works. So Kubernetes, I'll quickly run through the short kind of architecture, not go into the details. So you have various components in Kubernetes. One is the control plane, and these are the workers or the minions, called interchangeably. So here you have the scheduler, API server, etcd, controller manager, and here you have kubelet and CRI, CNI, CSI, all the plugins for the runtimes, and kube proxy. So these are some of the items which are present already. Now the main user interaction will be done via a tool called kubectl, 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 whatever, kubecontrol, whatever you want to call it. For today's, we will call it kubectl. So a user basically interacts with kubectl. So in order to create the application, in order to deploy the application, in order to do anything with the Kubernetes cluster, you will be interacting via kubectl. So you want to create a application or deploy an application, you will be using kubectl. You want to check anything from the cluster, you'll be again using kubectl. So whenever you issue a command kubectl, it will go to the API server, and API server is kind of the brain, like all the processes, everything within the Kubernetes cluster happens via the API server. And it's the only component that talks with etcd. Etcd is nothing but a key value data store. So this particular thing, this small guy over here, is the key value data store, which is etcd. That's how it is there. And it stores the state of Kubernetes, like how many replicas of a particular pod is running, or etc., and so on and so forth. So yeah, so say that you have a pod with that you want to run, basically an application that you want to run. So you say, hey, kubectl run the pod. The command will go to the API server. API server will tell the scheduler, hey, there is a pod that you need to run. The scheduler will find the best fit node from the workers and tell to the API server, okay, node A, say that this is node A. So node A is the best fit for this pod. It will tell to the API server. API server will persist that in etcd, and then again API server will try to create that. And then there are controller managers. Obviously, the controller manager are of different types, like replica set controller, daemon set controller, deployment controller. All these controllers are basic brains, you can say. The magic that is getting done is by the controller manager, because when you say I want to create the deployment, it is the duty of the controller manager to check whether the deployment is there inside the cluster. If not, then it will recreate. So that's how the auto healing kind of nature of Kubernetes comes into the play. And obviously now how the pod comes up. So there is a component kubelet that I told you. It keeps on checking with the API server. Hey, is there anything that I have to run? So as soon as the scheduler tells API server that there is a pod that you need to run on you need to run on node A, so it will pass on the message to kubelet. Hey, kubelet, run this particular pod. Now in the kubelet will talk with the interfaces of CRI and use the networking that is already established, and use the CSI if there is storage involved. So it will ask the CRI like Docker or Containerd or Cryo, any of those, and tell that can you pull this particular image, say Nginx. So can you pull Nginx image from the repository? So CRI will pull the image and download it here and run it as a pod. Now pod, basically this is a pod, and pod is a set of not a set, basically it is a container or multiple containers. So it consists of one container or multiple containers. There are different use cases for that. We'll not go into the details of that, because today we'll be talking about Kubernetes distribution, but you need to know the architecture for Kubernetes so that you can understand distributions well. Now so that's the kubeproxy basically set up the whole networking within the node-to-node networking, pod-to-pod networking, the IP tables and all those stuff, but very important and critical piece. So that's how the control plane and the worker works. So by now you know what CNCF is, what the cloud native landscape is from Priyanka's presentation. Now you know what Kubernetes is, where Kubernetes fits in, how you can deploy the applications to Kubernetes, what is the architecture that is getting used to deploy to Kubernetes, which is the control plane and the minions that will be there. Now, obviously, for when you talk about highly available stuff, you'll be having 3 masters or 3 control planes, C1, C2, C3, and then you'll be having your different workers or the minions where your actual workloads will be running. These can be non-schedulable, highly available architecture. You can have a DR setup as well, like you can replicate the same setup with another region, so that if this region goes down, then your another region is there to handle the use case, hot cold kind of scenario as well. This is very rare for very mission critical applications. This is very common because obviously you need highly available solution for your applications to be running and catering to the users. Cool. So now we'll talk about the Kubernetes distros. So there are various distros like K3S, CNCF, Sandbox project. Very recently was launched K0S and Micro K8s as well. This is from Canonical. All are open source. To all of these, you can actually contribute code wise, documentation wise, or in any sorts like in the Slack, solving the issues, creating the issues, any sort of contributions. So K3S is nothing but it's less than 5 less than K8, so just K3S, nothing with the name, no full form or all that stuff. So it is just plain K3S. Very lightweight Kubernetes distribution. So this is what K3S is. So very lightweight Kubernetes distribution built for IoT and edge computing. Very good for edge IoT CI pipelines. So you can actually have it integrated in your CI pipeline, create a small cluster, do the testing, destroy that. Very common use case. I will show you how to set up a K8s cluster and then how to set up a K3s cluster. Now, in order to set up a K3s cluster, you just need a single command. Now, that's how simple it is. That's what I was telling you. We are moving, I mean, the distributions are moving in such a way that people want to, so basically the developers of those applications or the distributions or the contributors, they want the end users' life to be easy. So what we'll do is, let's see how K3s would work. Yeah, I think we can work here. So I have prepared a few gists. So this one is for K3s. I'm doing in front of you only. So what it is doing is I ran a simple curl K3SIO. So it is finding the release, which is stable. So as of now, we have Kubernetes v1.21.2, which is the Kubernetes version, which is the latest one. And now it is downloading the binary. So in few seconds, it'll get completed. The downloading binary get completed. I should have done it on K3S3 actually. It's okay. In the meanwhile, what we'll do is K3s. We'll see the architecture. Now you have seen the architecture for Kubernetes. So the architecture is kind of similar in looking, but it is different. Here, everything runs as a single process. Now there, every component is different and you have to manage, I mean, you have to take care of every component. But here, K3s server and K3s agent, everything is running as a single process. You can see over here, one process is having API server, scheduler, controller, manager. Apart from that, etcd, it is coming built in with SQLite. But for the HA version of K3s, you do get etcd. Now this, how they are able to achieve this is is with the help of a project called Kine. So there is a project called Kine Kubernetes, which is again by Rancher. So the Kine helps you to run that SQLite, Postgres, MySQL, or DQLite. Any sort of database, any sort of storage for Kubernetes. So it's not only limited to etcd. So single binary, awesome. All everything running as single process, very fast. And you have tunnel proxy. So once the connection is established via the tunnel from agent to server, then you don't need to reconnect again. So there will be a one-stop connection from the agent to the tunnel, and then the communications happen via the tunnel. And by default, you don't have to install any networking component, any networking solution. You don't have to install any CRI, which is containerd or Docker. So it comes pre-built with Flannel as a networking component, containerd as a container runtime, and also Traefik as load balancer. With the latest Kubernetes releases, it is Traefik 2.4.x. And yeah, that's pretty much it. You get everything out of the box. Uh, and if you actually want to see K3s GitHub, we can actually see the releases. So in the release page, you'll be able to see all the embedded components. So you have Kubernetes, SQLite, then containerd, Flannel is there, metric server comes pre-default, Helm controller, local path provisioner. So it also comes with a storage solution, which is local path, so that you can easily use the local storage without any hassle. So you are getting a complete out of the box distribution to try out any sort of stuff. Very importantly, there is a thing called Katacoda, which gives you a free environment for testing out different things. So you can actually run pretty quickly. Just copy this command, go to the Ubuntu playground, run this, and it will be, finding and downloading the latest release and doing all the stuff. So we are here. So basically we were here and K3s started. So you can see it found the release, downloaded, installed that. So it's a single binary, moved it over here, and then created some scripts, and it started as a process. So K3s is a process. Now kubectl get pods. Basically we don't have any pods, but we'll be having nodes, which is a single node. So we already have created a single node cluster. So you can see it is ready with Kubernetes v1.21. Fancy. We didn't do anything. Within in less than a minute, it got ready. So it is super cool. You can get started with your Kubernetes journey immediately. Now, in order to join, you can actually get the token. So there is a token which is there. You can rotate that. You can provide your own token as well. With extensive documentation is there, but we'll go with the defaults. So this is the token that we'll be using to join another node, which is this one. So let's paste it here. And what we'll do is, in a simple command, we will provide the token. And this is the token. And then you have, that's it. Let's see if it works. So again, it will download the same thing. So it will start downloading the binary, but after the binary getting downloaded, it will run the agent process, not the server process. So that will be done. And and even here also, so this was Katacoda, and you can see that the cluster got created here as well. So you can see how easily I can do, how much resource, how much less resources it will take. Small, very small binary, around 60 MB, basically less than 100 MB. So nothing is there. So you can see it is there. Then you can do kube ctl run nginx -- image nginx. Boom, I created a pod as well. So you can see the pod is getting created. It is container creating. Now, if you go back 3 to 5 years, or maybe just 3 years before, all these was not possible, and you have to create a Kubernetes cluster, which is not that easy. I'll show you. And you will not get as quick things done as you can now. You will not be able to do POCs as quick as you can now. So all these things are there. Now let's go here. So again, here, if you go, it has started the server. And here, if you go, it has started the agent. So let's go here, do the nodes. So it has not joined yet. Maybe I didn't put the right host name. Let me check. Oh, yes. We didn't put the right host name because expectation was I will run the server command on K3s1, K3s3, and the agent one on that. So this is of the agent one itself. So what we'll do is we'll do a kill all script, or just do the uninstall. As simple as that. We have removed that, and we'll just go here, K3s3, copy this and run the command again with the right IP, not this one. K3s4, yeah, this one. Cool. This should be fine, I believe. Yeah, this should be fine. And token remains the same. Perfect. Cool. In the meanwhile, we'll go over here. Now the gist of commands that you are seeing is actually of setting up a Kubernetes cluster, a proper Kubernetes cluster, which is a K8s1, a proper Kubernetes cluster using the command. So you can see we have 4 nodes, control plane, 3 workers. First, we are writing the container dconf because we need that. We are setting the overlays, filters, CRI conf, and then we will be installing the container D and restarting the container D, swapping off the memory and doing it on the restart as well, installing some of the prerequisite transport HTTPS curl, and then downloading, setting up the keys and the list for downloading kubectl kubeadm. Then we do that, and we do the install as well. After this, we do a kubeadm init, and then we have 3 commands that we have to run, and then we have to install a CNI solution, which is the networking solution, without which nothing could work, either Calico, Flannel, Weave, or any of that. And then we get to this point. Now this is the gist that I have prepared by going through the documentation. This works perfectly fine. You'll not get things work immediately perfectly fine for the operating systems. You have to work accordingly for different operating system and things like that. So that's how you set up the single node. And after that, you will also get a joint token that you will be getting. Just a sec. I'm not able to move my zoom. Yeah, now I'm able to. So for example, this is the one. So kubectl get node. So this is a regular K8s cluster. So you can see it is. I also installed it previously with the Kubernetes v1.2.1.2. So using the same script that I showed you, if you need that script, it's public gist. I can send that over. No issues. Obviously you will be able to run get pod. So yesterday I was demoing Longhorn. So there is a Longhorn storage solution that I implemented, and it has all sorts of thing. So the components that I was telling, so you have kube proxy on all the nodes. So you have 4 nodes, 1 control plane and 4 masters. So it is running as a daemon set, as you must have seen in the architecture. You have a kube scheduler for scheduling the things. You have controller manager. You have API server. So all components are different. So you understand, right? In K3s, how the distributions are different. Though you are able to get the same power, and it's a trimmed down version of K8s, but you get the same power. So, but it is more extensible. You'll be able to do more things. You'll be able to do extend it very well. You will be able to have more control, because that is a single process. And here you have multiple. You can have your own scheduler. You can do different types of things based on the configuration. But as starting points, or as maybe even deploying simple applications, not very heavy applications, or even for heavy applications, I would say you can actually use any of the architectures. So that's pretty much it for K8s. And yeah, now let's see if our agent got correctly joined. Perfect. So you can see we have a 2 node cluster ready. One is the control plane, another one is the agent. And again, kubectl get pods hyphen get pods. So you can see it comes with local path provisioner. So inbuilt storage solution, very simple one, obviously used for very minimal POCs and all that stuff. You have metric server. So I can do kubectl top node, but here I cannot do kubectl top node. So I need to install the metric server. So you can see a lot of things I would need to install when I choose my Kubernetes, but a lot of things come pre-built with Kubernetes, with K3s. You can see the traffic is inbuilt. So traffic is basically a kind of controller, basically an ingress controller, which is there so that you can create the ingress from the services. I'll show you how. And so you can see these comes out of the box, and yeah, I mean, it's pretty much neat, right? And you can see the CPU and the resource usage is very limited. The binary is very small, easy to debug. Also, K3s comes with some set of tools, like it comes pre-built with CRI-CTL, Cricuttle. It comes with the CTR. If you are using etcd within the HA kind of architecture with K3s, you get etcd snapshot out of the box that you can do. For other solutions, obviously you have to go for solutions like Velero. So like K3s CRICTLPS. So you can see the list of pods running, so how they are, and you can see the logs, basically just like Docker PS and all those. So there is a CRI-CTL-PS, and you don't have to install that. It comes by default with K3s. So that's the beauty. So that was K3s. Now let's go to another one, which is K0s. So K0s, like you can see, I wrote this blog on November 16th, and I think it was launched on K0s was launched very recently, around in November timeframe itself, last year. It has grown after that. I just recently did the stream with the K0s team. It has grown a lot after that. So K3s is also a frictionless Kubernetes distribution. Again, a single binary. A lot of basically questions popped into the mind of folks who are already using K3s, like what is the difference between K0s and K3s, and that was there. So it is a zero frictionless Kubernetes. The main benefit which I like the most is the control plane isolation. So generally in Kubernetes, you have to do tainting, and sometimes you can forget the taints, and things can go wrong. Things can go wrong in labeling. Things can go even if an attacker gets into the system and they get to the control plane, they will be able to schedule the pods in your K0s, the control plane isolation is there. What that means? So let's go back here. So we have next up is K0s. You have your control plane isolation. So in the control plane isolation, so control plane is basically, if you don't remember, just this is the control plane. Okay, this whole is the control plane. Control plane is your brain that does all the magic, and your workers or minions will be the one where your actual applications and the workloads are running. So after that recap, so it does the control plane isolation, means you won't be able to schedule the workloads on the control plane. How? The kubelet component itself won't be running over here. Even if the attacker gets somehow the access or to run the pod, they'll be able to issue the command, but nothing will happen because control plane is completely isolated, and you will be able to run only the workloads on your workers that you have assigned. And next up is how to set it up. Obviously, we'll go over that as well. So let's first, I would also like to show you how in Kubernetes, just to make things clear for those who do not know anything. So kubectl run nginx hyphen image is equal to nginx hyphen port 80 hyphen try run client OYAML. Hope this runs. Okay. So what happens is in Kubernetes, you write YAML files. So YAML files look like this, where you have API version, kind. Now kind are the Kubernetes objects. So you have n number of Kubernetes objects, not n actually, Kubernetes objects. So Kubernetes objects are basically your deployment, your pod, replica set, daemon set, and all those, service, etc. So basically this is the kind what you want to create on the cluster. Pod basically is your application that you want to run. Deployment will be when you want to run multiple applications and you want to use Kubernetes power to schedule the transfer the load to different pods, and if one pod goes down, then the deployment controller will automatically schedule pod on another node, things like that. If you want to use, you do use deployment. Service, obviously, to expose the application. I'll just show you how it works, and then things like that. Metadata is something like what are the labels for that, what is the name for that, and spec section is something where you define what you need. So you need a container with an image called nginx. That will be your image, your application. What is the name, the ports, which port the application is exposed, the DNS policy, restart policy. These are just like that. I mean, more for more advanced use cases. So now we'll remove the dry run and -yaml, and we'll just run it. So kubectl get pause. So it will be running in the namespace called default. Also, there are different namespaces that you can get. Kubectl get ns that you can create for different people in the organization, different users in the organizations, to isolate different kind of workloads. You can specify the resource quota of particular namespace, so that if you assign a namespace to a particular what you say team, they can only deploy these many, they can only use these many CPUs and all that stuff. So we can do n number of things with Kubernetes because it gives you that power. So kubectl get ns, kubectl get pods. Our pod should be ready by now, hopefully. It's still container creating. So basically container creating means it is downloading the image. The kubelet has issued the command. Yeah, you can actually kubectl describe that and see what is happening. So you can see the scheduler does the job first. It is successfully assigned to a node K3S3. It is now pulling the image. It has now successfully pulled the image. It has now created the container, and kubelet has started the container. So I told you, after the default scheduler has assigned the node, it is the responsibility of the kubelet to talk to the CRI, get the image pulled, and start the container process. So it's very transparent process. You can see how things are working, and you'll be, amazed to see the technology that has been evolved, the cloud native ecosystem, how easily it is getting done, which used to take a lot of efforts previously in deploying the applications onto infrastructure. So now what we'll do is kubectl expose Nginx, and hyphen type is equal to node port hyphen port, maybe 80 pod. Let's see the syntax. Kubectl. Yeah, we have expose, right? Expose hyphen help. Cool. So kubectl expose pod. Yeah, that should run. Kubectl get pods. Oh, there was a hyphen missing over here. So kubectl. Now what we have done is we created the pod first. Now we want to access the pod from outside world. Now in order to access from the outside world, obviously you need to expose it as a service so that you can access it. Now you can expose it as load balancer. You can, if you're a cloud provider, or if you have already a HA proxy or load balancer service, or you can do it as a node port. Node port means you can use the same node's IP with the port that automatically gets generated. So let's see what happens. So we'll do kubectl get svc. We have nginx service, which is a node port type, and it gets IP, the port which is 32423. So we'll go here and we will copy our one of the nodes from K3s, and we'll go back. So you can see welcome to Nginx. That's how simple the application is, and it's exposed to the outside world. You people can actually copy paste this and it will work for you. That's how simple it is. The application exposing. So you can see I did a small POC. If you have your own application, you can do that. Now, so that was something about Kubernetes. So the same works as it is exactly on Kubernetes K8s, K0s, K3s. Same YAML, same commands, everything is same. Just the distribution is different. Just the your some of the benefits are different. Like some have the controllable isolation, some have the packaged components with a like single lightweight binary as a single process. In K0s, everything as a kind of separate process, and it has a control plane isolation. Micro K8s is also another one which is highly available. K8s, low ops, minimal production ready Kubernetes, that works very well on edge, IoT, etc. So like this, there are different distributions which have different use cases. So just let's do one last demo and we'll take up questions after that. I already have few nodes and here. So I already have the K0s, I think, which is there. Okay. Now what we'll do, we'll start the server on one of them. Where is my gist? So we'll install controller, K0s install controller. If we can actually uh, install, I mean, we can enable the worker role as well if we don't want control plane isolation. Basically, if we want to test on a single node, then obviously you cannot do the control plane isolation. So you can see very simple, using the defaults, no configuration provided, creating all the users, installing the K0 service, as simple as that. Then yeah, this is the command that will help you enable it worker. So basically, if you have a single node, then you run this particular command and enable the worker. You will be able to schedule nodes on the schedule pods on the worker as sorry, the control plane as well. But that's not the ideal use case. Its main power is the control plane isolation. So basically, think of managed services. Like say you are creating this one. Say you are creating a Civo Kubernetes service. So this is Civo Kubernetes, and this is a K3s based Kubernetes cluster. Now here, when I go to one of the clusters, I get some nodes. Now I don't get control plane. So basically, I don't get the master IP. I don't get the master name, node name, or anything, the master related information, which is the control plane. Basically, I don't get any control plane information. What I just get the kubeconfig file. So anything that happens, any interaction that we have to do with any Kubernetes cluster is via the kubeconfig file. So I just get the kubeconfig file and the API endpoint and the external IP for the services and the ingress. That's it. I don't get the control plane information, but we have put a lot of effort to achieve that. And same is being done by all the other cloud providers to achieve that. But K0s gives you by default So you can actually have a feel of what cloud providers might be doing in order to isolate the control plane. So that's the power. So you are already getting the control plane isolation out of the box and you don't have to do anything. So that's the big power of that. So let's see where we are with the gist. Yeah, let's start that, enable that, and get the nodes. Node sources found. Yeah, it'll be starting up soon. Yeah, obviously it won't show, right? Because it is the control plane without the control plane isolation. So you won't get any nodes. So what we will do is we'll obviously do all these commands, admin conf, and we'll create the token now for the worker. So let's create the token. It has generated a fancy token. Now let's go to another node. So basically these are two separate machines, compute instances, and we'll run the command k0s worker, and in this we will copy paste the complete token, and we have done that. So let's go to cubes k0s kubectl get nodes. You can see the node has already started appearing over here. It will soon get ready. So that's how easy it is to set up a kind of control plane isolation mode. Even if I give you the kube config file. So even if I give you this one, kube config, sorry, where is that? Admin.conf, okay, cat. Yeah, even if I give you this file, so this is the kube config file. So this is the file that you can interact with the cluster. So even if I give you this file, you won't be able to interact with the master node or the control plane node. So actually we are moving from the terminology master to control plane for the inclusive naming. That's why, but still in the back of the head, it still, turns to be master. So basically you won't be able to, you will be able to interact with the cluster perfectly fine. You want that because you want to run the workloads, but you won't be able to interact with the control plane. So you won't be able to tamper any of the things in the control plane, any of the workings in the control plane, which is awesome. And you get this by default. Get nodes. So it's still getting ready. We can actually see what is happening over here. Yeah, successful component. Yeah, starting all fine. Network plugin is not, yeah, it is trying to initialize the network plugin. Obviously after that only you get everything is ready. Now I told you like every command runs the same. So if I do kubectl run nginx hyphen image is equal to nginx, pod is created, get pods, container creating. So that's how simple it is to set up different distributions. A bit difficult to set up K8s, the regular Kubernetes, but it's a very great learning. Obviously, if you are learning the Kubernetes concepts journey, you will be taking separate VMs, setting up all the kubeadm, kubectl, all those stuff, or maybe using different methods to set up Kubernetes, or you can use any of the distributions, very easy to set up, or you can use any of the managed services like Civo Kubernetes. So very simple. Basically how this works is why I tell to use it. Now you don't have to do anything. You just create the cluster OTF and select the size, and then boom, create the cluster. That's how simple it is to create the cluster. In less than 2 minutes, you will be getting this cluster powered by K3s. So this is the first ever K3s managed offering, and the node pools are creating. Here you will get the kube config, which I showed you. You download that, interact with the cluster, done. So you can avoid the complete setup, complete learning curve of setting up and doing, start interacting immediately, start deploying your applications. That's it. So that's how simple it is. So I hope by now you know what Kubernetes is, what CNCF ecosystem is, what Kubernetes is, what are some of the distributions, why we use some of the distributions, what are some of the benefits and powers of K3s, K0s, and where to use managed Kubernetes, where to use Kubernetes distributions, where to set up your own Kubernetes cluster. So I hope you enjoyed the session. I'm open for questions now.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Sayam. Yeah, go ahead, Prakash.
Yeah, I just wanted to check with you on the CVIO's managed cluster of K3s, how much it costs if faculty wants to use it. Kind
Absolutely.
of.
Yeah, I can show you immediately. So when you go to Kubernetes, when you go to create a cluster, pricing is very straightforward. So you can see as minimum as $4 per month for extra small, and as big as 8 CPU, 32 gigs of RAM, and all the NVMe is there, 8 TB transfer, $128 per month. So there's a price comparison, like you can, so there's a monthly one, you can do hourly one as well. That depends on you. Also, if you sign up, you get, I think, $250 free, so you can test out, like faculty can actually test out a lot of stuff into $50, and then they can decide, whether, apart from this, you get pre-built applications that you can easily install. So obviously when you create the Kubernetes cluster anywhere in the world, you won't be you have to install some applications for some of the purpose. Like for chaos engineering, you will be installing, for GitOps, you will be installing some applications. So we already have everything pre-built that you can just select, and it's open source. Actually, our marketplace is open source, and tons of contributors have actually contributed to that. So you can contribute the marketplace as well. So that's how the pricing goes. Very straightforward pricing, and to be honest, I know I'm a CEO employee, but not just pitching from that side. But if you compare any of the managed offerings, this is the minimum price that you get across all the cloud offerings, and this is the fastest offering as well. So within 2 minutes, you won't get the cluster in there.
Just give the link to people so that they can use it $250 free and see how much they can learn and use it for future. Thank you.
Absolutely. So you can try it out. I'll post the link in the chat. Send to everyone. Yeah, so this
Thank
is the
you.
link.
And hopefully, yeah, this should help participants to try it out, because when you do hands-on, that's the best way to learn. You can
Absolutely.
read any theory. They call it pothi padi padi jag muha pandit hua na koi types. So let them try a few minutes, and I hope they will get the crux of what Kubernetes is. Thank you, and great thing. Yeah, let's go to the next question.
Yeah, what's the next one?
Vipin, you have any, or I can go back? Is there a Windows version for this?
Absolutely. I am just finding a blog from Nuno, one of my friends.
Mhm.
So we can actually use K3D for doing that. Yeah,
Mhm.
this is the one.
Yeah, the reason is a lot of people still have not come out of the Windows because resources are limited.
Yeah, I mean,
And
we can do K3S in Docker. Basically, K3D is another project, which is
oh, okay, Docker.
yeah. I think this is the one. Yeah, I can find some resources for that
Yeah,
definitely.
no problem. So you can share with them the resources. So one of the problems what we have been facing is, if I tell some students as well as teacher, sir, we don't have, uh, I have only Windows at home and I'm not able to go to college these days. So I can only, and Linux, they are a bit weak, which is a problem for some of them. So it ends up doing, either they have to use a Ubuntu dual boot with a Windows or something, and then probably able to do some other things. But those are challenges, and resources. Hosted one is the best one. And
Absolutely.
if
Hosted ones are the best ones.
correct,
So I,
until they
I
are
don't
ready with
feel a
their
need,
non.
to be very honest, I don't feel a need, like, okay, I have a Mac and it does most of the heavy lifting, but actually I don't run a lot of things on Mac. I do have a Rancher desktop, Docker desktop, and all those things running. I do have few clusters running, but most of the stuff that I do is across the compute VMs, like you have just seen here as well. So these are the VMs on CO itself. So they are the compute instances on the VMs, and I have on two of them I have K0s in front of you. On two of them I have K3s, and on four of them I have K8s. So basically it comes, yeah, it comes actually at a less price than buying an equipment and doing all those stuff. So you can actually use it and learn it and destroy it, all those things, all those sorts of things. Obviously you can practice it, you will be getting $250 as well. So take advantage of these these offerings whenever they are giving discounts, whenever you get free credits. That is very important. Use those, learn them, and a lot of tons of free resources are there. My YouTube, you can check out that and do that. And also CNCF edX is edX training on Kubernetes is absolutely free, so you can take that. So I know in most of the most of the community in India, they are constrained in spending a lot of money internationally, because these folks at any of the cloud vendors, you need to add a credit card, which is a valid from their side, because if they don't, then there are Bitcoin miners who will exploit. So that's how it is. So that is why you have to add the card to the cloud vendors, but it's not like you'll be charged just like that. Obviously, if you go to the very big vendors, you can get charged for even just like that, and you won't even know, and very difficult to chase. So go for the small ones, try them out and see, work through, learn Kubernetes concepts. Very important for educators, teachers, because you are the only ones who can guide the students well. Because students will be one day learning A, one day learning B, one day learning C, and they might not be able to connect. But you as teachers can connect the dots well, create a kind of piece of curriculums, and then teach. So that's pretty much it.
So are there any recommendation for the pre-final and final year students which the faculty can suggest for the projects, etc.? Because just contributing alone is not giving them the project they need. So how do they contribute as well as do that project as part of the project?
So basically, there are a lot of Linux Foundation scholarships. There are a lot of the projects which are the mentors and the mentees one, that you can be part of. So there is Google Summer of Code that definitely every student should check, should participate. Even if they fail, it's completely okay. People do crack it in 2 years, 3 years time frame, which is completely okay. Then the Slack is very important. So you reach out directly to the project maintainers, how the project is getting worked. Attend some of the meetings. Don't speak, even if you don't understand anything. Just be there, see what is happening, and then you try to get involved. Now, in the getting involved, obviously, you will be first learning how to use the product. Secondly, you will be helping with the documentation. Third, then the maintainers will see, okay, this particular person is doing some effort, then they'll mentor you, and then you'll be assigned some piece of work within that particular open source project, and then you can do that. There have been people like MLH Foundation is there, which is giving people a lot of opportunities. Data on Kubernetes is there, that gives you a lot of opportunities. Then Linux Foundation, CNCF, gives you a lot of opportunities. All the open source projects, they do have a student program where students can apply for the scholarships, and they do get the internships. So you can end up intern. So basically, I chose one of the interns as well for CO. So there's a person, Kunal, who is doing internship at CO. He is, I think, in third, I mean, end of the third year. So I mean, we are a lot of companies are giving exposure. It's just you need to reach out to people, and a lot of people, a lot of these organizations, a lot of these open source projects need people who are in third, fourth year of their graduation, so that they can learn and get to a stage when they get out, they can immediately start contributing to that particular projects. As teachers, I would say encourage people to contribute to open source. Take all those contributions as part of the projects, because sometimes students would just be like, okay, I have to create some dummy project and I don't want to contribute. I don't, anything doesn't matter, because in the end my marks will be counted on that. So it's now here the role of teacher becomes very important. You are the one who have to encourage, and you have to tell, okay, even if you contribute to documentation, that counts. Even if you contribute to any of the things in the open source ecosystem, that counts, because every single contribution counts, as Priyanka also mentioned that. So you as teachers also have to do some changes from the traditional system that we are seeing, that if you don't create projects, you're just getting to 20, 30, 40 marks, that's it. So you have to grow over there. As students, you have to grow on the side of, learning new things, not sticking only to the syllabus that is there for marks. You have to go out of the box. If you have to reach out of the box, there are a lot of Indian folks which are as a top contributor. So we have seen that India is listed on fourth, but the contributors on top, I can definitely say in top 10 there will be Indian contributors, because we have done that. We have been there. So I mean, you can see like a lot of folks from India who has a good name in the CNCF ecosystem, in the community. The like Priyanka knows me personally, and we all know I work with CNCF team. Though I work for CIVO, but in my free time I do definitely work with the work on new initiatives, student programs, teacher programs, and all those stuff. So make sure you do that. I'm not getting anything out of that, but it's something that I'm trying to give back to the community, so that our community, our ecosystem. I'm doing free education on YouTube. So again, it is giving back to the community. I'll be soon starting the regional language programs, like first in Hindi, then in different other languages as well, because I have friends in Bangalore, friends in Chennai. So we'll be starting different from their diverse backgrounds as well. So we are trying, but students and teachers also have to try. You have to leave the traditional approach, come forward in the cloud native ecosystem, in the cloud native approach. Now is not the time when US is 10 years ahead and we are not. Now is the time when technology goes over there overnight. We write a blog immediately 1 hour after that. I have done it more than 10, 15 times. So I think that's where, so there are 5 streams on my YouTube channel, which you'll not find anywhere on the open source projects, which are just launched. So that's the power that we are headed towards. Now, if we change our mindset now, obviously it will help our future generations to be at the next level, the best level.
Yeah, thanks, Sayam. And I think we are running out of time as well. If participants have more questions, they can ask in discussion forum, and then we can pass to you, and
Sure.
then you can be answered. Yeah, thanks, Sayam, for joining us today. And we see that how we can contribute more towards this building a community around this open source culture in India. And
Yeah,
we need
hope
your
it
help.
helps.
And
Yeah, definitely. I'm so you can reach me out on Twitter at the rate Sayam Pathak. You can reach me out on Twitter. Absolutely, my DMs are open. So any of the institutes, you want any guidance, any of the government officials, you want any guidance on migrating to open source, migrating to basically cloud native, how to start, what is the process, I can definitely help you out. So you can reach me out anytime on CNCF Slack, Kubernetes Slack. I'm available on all the open source Slack channels, so you can reach me out, or you can just tell Prakash. Prakash is directly reachable to me via WhatsApp call or any of the things. So I'm reachable, but you have to reach me out. You have to ask questions, then only I'll be able to help you out, then only I'll be able to answer you. So make sure you do that. It's the right time for the government organizations to move to cloud native and show that we are not behind in any way, because we are already doing a lot in the cloud native community. And I think we have the resources, all resources available in India, and we can definitely do tons of stuff with students, with teachers, and with the government projects.
thanks,
Thank you,
Sayam.
thank you, Sayam.
Thank you, Prakash, for this. Really happy to be here, and excited to be with you folks.
Sure, our pleasure.
Thank you, Sayam. Thank you everyone for joining us today.